These are some of the pros and cons of new construction in the Tampa, Florida area. Here we go. I'm Sam, and thanks for coming by the Living in Tampa channel, where we make videos about what it's like to live and move to the Tampa, Florida area. Also, we are a team of realtors, so if you have any real estate specific needs or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. So before we get into the pros and cons, the overarching question here is, should you buy new construction? And these are some of the things that I would process if I were buying new construction. And the people that reach out to us, the hundreds of people that have reached out to us, these are the kind of things that they are processing too. Okay, timing is a big part of the new construction process because you're often waiting for the house to be built. Maybe you want to be here while it's happening, or maybe you're okay not being here. But the timing is complicated not just because of the construction, but maybe you need to be in that school zone when school starts for your kids. Maybe there's a delay with some things. Maybe there's like the supply chain is making things slow down a little bit, so you're not able to move in at a certain time. Or maybe you're trying to time the whole process with selling your house back on the other side of the country, and that adds some complication to it. And all of these moving pieces of building, closing, selling, closing, packing, moving, it's like you're conducting an orchestra and all these moving parts are happening at the same time. And honestly, I've never seen it line up perfectly. Of course, that's always the goal. We approach this with the most honest intentions. Everybody involved does, and it doesn't always line up perfectly. One of the next things to process about new construction is a lot of these communities are a little bit further outside of town. And if you don't have a job in the area yet, you're thinking ahead about like what this potential commute will be and areas you could work. Maybe you know you'll be in a certain area because that's where those kind of employers are located, or there's a hospital close by and you're a nurse and you know that you could always get a job there, but that is just something you need to consider. One of the next things to process for you as the buyer is the community and the lifestyle that you want. Is this a community where you're gonna feel like you have a lot to go out and do, if that's important to you, or maybe you're a homebody and that stuff doesn't even matter? One of the things that my family is doing recently, we're trying to like make our yard the most attractive place for us to be. So we've got chickens out there, we're doing some landscaping, we've got some raised garden beds now. And just yesterday, my delayed Father's Day gifts to myself was a fire pit and a cornhole set so that the yard becomes even more engaging for us. And we have little kids, so that's like really fun for us right now. We are embracing the identity of homebodies. But maybe you're different and you want to do all those activities with the greater community. So you're looking for that community center, that big community pool, maybe the pickleball courts and some of those other activities. So another thing to consider is the actual property size, not the physical house, but the lot. These lots are measured in width. So 50, 60, 70, sometimes a little bit wider, and then the prices go up accordingly. And most of these developers sell out of those wider lots pretty quickly. And lastly, one of the things to process is your monthly budget, the ideal amount that you want to spend, not the max that you can afford, but what do you actually want to spend every month? And there are some things that make that a little bit higher at a new construction community, and we'll get into that in the cons. So we're gonna start with some of the pros and why do people buy new construction. And we have another video, the 5 best things about new construction, that gives a little bit different perspective than we're gonna give here. So first thing here is low maintenance costs. With a new house, your maintenance costs are gonna be pretty low. All the mechanicals and the structure overall are brand new. You're not gonna have to fix many things. Hopefully you're not gonna have to fix many things. And the builder offers warranties on a lot of that stuff for a pretty big window. So if something does come up, typically the builder is gonna come back out and fix it or replace it. One of the next pros, if you did go through the process and choose a lot of your customizations, you're not gonna need to update any of those things to be different than what you want. And at least with new construction, you know what you're gonna get. So you're coming in thinking, okay, this is the flooring I get, these are the counters I get. In the same line as low maintenance, the second pro here is no updating required. Everything will be current at the time when you move in. All your appliances, your flooring, your paint, everything will be current, so you don't need to come in and make those changes. The third pro is neighborhood amenities. Whether that is a big crystal lagoon, or that's water access, or that's community events, all of these neighborhoods are gonna have varying degrees of that. And along with those extremely localized things in your community, these communities are also attracting new grocery stores and new event centers and all these kind of things. So I told a story about Riley and Jordan previously. They bought a townhouse in the Epperson community. And one of the things that Riley brought up to me was whenever he pulled up to the appointment, he saw moms with strollers everywhere. That was very important to them. So that gets us into the next thing on our pros list of these communities are a good place to raise a family, partially because there are a lot of other families going to these areas. So whether you're looking for an area to raise your family or you're looking for long-term upside appreciation as an investor, these new communities often align with long-term goals. They don't often align with short-term goals though. And then the final thing on the pros list is having a real estate agent with you in this process. This is important, we've talked about it in other videos. If you are a very savvy home buyer, maybe you've done it a lot of times, maybe you're a very informed consumer, I would actually tell you, you could handle this on your own. These advantages include somebody that understands the process, somebody that can advocate for you, and somebody that can hear out the builder and help you understand what the builder is saying. Also, navigating things like escalation clauses, supply chain clauses, all of these things are very important. And a good agent is very relationship focused with these builder reps. So I know that if something comes up in your transaction, I can just call them and say, hey, Jennifer, like this and this is going on with this house. What can we do to make this work for our clients? And being someone advocating for you and approaching it like that is very helpful in the process. All right, now let's get into the cons. Okay, right off the bat, if you don't have an agent, dealing with the builders can be a downside. And the reasons it can be is, these builders are representing the builder. These are licensed agents working for the builder to sell their product. It's like they're at a store selling a product. You're walking into the store, their job is to sell you a product. So they might not engage so much in what your short and long-term goals are and what you want to be surrounded by. And of course, they're trying to fit you into their product. They're not spending the time to hear you out and then look at multiple products to see what works best for you. Okay, the next con are the other fees. So this will be HOAs, CDDs, and property taxes. Of course, you're going to expect to pay property taxes, but sometimes these newer communities have a way higher tax rate. Some of that is the CDD being put into that, but they also have higher rates at times. When I was at South Shore Yacht Club yesterday showing Dennis and Joy a place, we noticed that the tax rate on all the documentation said 1.5%. And then on top of that, the CDD was $3,100 a year. And keep in mind, this is a very high-end community with canal access, with a private beach. It's a very interesting, high-end place. But that tax rate was so expensive. They were moving from Long Island, New York, and moving down here to retire. And since they are paying cash for that property, they're trying to keep their fixed expenses as low as possible. Oh, and I didn't mention, on top of all of that, the HOA is $360 a month in that community. As we've said before, no communities are created equal. They're all going to differ in all of those things. It's worth spending the time to research and find out which of those costs you can live with and which you can't. Okay, next on the list, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the commute distance can get pretty intense from some of these. A lot of you are not moving down here to retire. You're still thinking of working. Your kids are going to school. The commuting into all these different areas can take a while, especially if you're commuting from the South Shore Yacht Club down in Ruskin, through the small town of Ruskin, all the way up Highway 41 to downtown Tampa. That's a pretty intense drive, especially if you're doing that drive twice a day. That's pretty intense. In some of these communities like Mira Bay down in that same area, once you get to the gate, you may be driving 5 or 10 minutes into the community before you actually get to your house. Or I think of Starkey Ranch up in Odessa. This sprawling neighborhood is so intense. I've heard it takes about 15 minutes to get to the very back from the gate. Another con with new construction is some pretty intense deed restrictions. So the deed restrictions are usually, some kind of bylaws under the HOA that the HOA manages. These kind of restrictions limit, how long your grass can be, how dead your grass can be. They limit parking on the road, whether or not a boat could be parked in the driveway or the road, or it has to be somewhere else, whether or not you can park on the grass. It's a Florida thing to park on the grass. I was always surprised by that when I came down here. People just park on the grass. And the grass is so durable that it hardly even kills it. Even if you do it over and over and over again, it just grows back. So these deed restrictions are something to consider. In a lot of these neighborhoods, for example, I wouldn't be able to have my chickens. And that's just kind of a fun part of our yard ecosystem, to have the chickens out, to have our kids out there running around, something that we enjoy. Okay, next on the con list is lot size. These lots are pretty narrow. People often tell me that they feel like they could reach the other house. And you maybe could walk in between the houses and touch both of them on some of these communities. And if that is going to feel a little too crowded for you, then you need to look elsewhere. Next on the con list is availability. These places do sell out pretty fast. Even though everybody thinks that this real estate bubble is popping or that there's massive amounts of listings and inventory, there's not. A lot of these builders are sold out, or they have a line of people waiting to buy these places. For example, with Dennis and Joy at South Shore Yacht Club, they wanted a single-story house, and the builder told me that they're only gonna build 2 more single-story houses in the whole development. So if we wanted one of those, we would have to move pretty quickly. And then I mentioned that they'd like to build a pool in their backyard, and he said, well, only one of those would really work to build a pool in the backyard, because the other one, your pool would have to be really small. All of these unique factors are important. And then our last con for the day about new construction in the Tampa, Florida area is delays. And these delays aren't as intense as they were in the middle of the COVID pandemic, but they still happen. These builders are still not super certain about price changes, about delays, and they put all these special addendums in the contract to make up for these delays and not take the blame. One of these that I saw recently was with a builder in Epperson, and it was called the supply chain addendum. What this said was that they may have the certificate of occupancy before everything is finished. So they may have this, like the core of the house finished and have it approved by the county to live in, but they may not have the appliances or the doorknobs at that point. So it could be kind of quirky, like the certain things that get delayed that you just don't know what's gonna happen. This unknown in the process is just kind of a con overall. You don't have the control, and you really don't own the property until you close on it. Even though you have made a payment on it, you have a deposit, you have a contract, you don't own it until you closed. So these were some of the pros and cons of new construction in the Tampa, Florida area. To make sure you don't miss our next videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any real estate specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out anytime. Our phone number and email are right there on the screen and in the description down below. Thanks for coming by.